Evening there, Councilman. How are you this evening?
Good evening. I'm doing very well. How about yourself?
I'm doing just fine. Good. I'm doing just fine. Well, we are live, and I want to say good evening to everyone that's out there. Tonight we're going to have on the Let's Talk show on Urban Cast. Of course, I'm Jack, and I'm thrilled to have with us for an engaging discussion with our guest, Lee Rubin, who's the current councilman at large and a candidate for Alexandria City Councilman at large in this election cycle. We invite you to participate in the conversation by asking questions in the comments sections. Your voice matters, and we want to hear from you. Also, if you haven't registered to vote, you can easily do so online these days by going out to govote.com, and that's the French spelling on it. All you have to do is go out there, and it's really straightforward. Let's make our voices heard and shape the future of our community together. Again, Councilman, we definitely want to say welcome to you here this evening, and I'd like you to go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right. I am Lee Rubin. Uh, been a lifelong resident of Alexandria. My family's been here for over 100 years. Married for 53 years to my wife, Pam, and have 2 children and 7 grandchildren here. Currently serving as your councilman, as one of the 2 councilmen at large for the city. And as Jack just said, I'm running for re-election for that seat.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and dive directly down in some of the questions that I have for you there, Councilman.
Okay.
Public safety and crime are major concerns in our community. What are your plans to address these issues?
Well, let me tell you what has been done over the last several months. First of all, fortunately, our crime rate is down about 40% from last year, our violent crime rate, which I'm happy to say. But, any one murder is too many. But we have invested a lot of money in our police department. This past 12 months, we've invested over $4 million into 26 new cars, a lot of new equipment, training equipment, and body armor and so forth for our policemen. And what has happened because of that is the morale in our police department has increased substantially. And you'll notice that the response times to calls have been shortened up substantially from what they used to be. Again, because our policemen are in a better frame of mind, and they're not driving cars with 120,000 miles on them and so forth. And so, they're just in a better frame of mind, and they're able to work with the people better. But, one of the keys to crime, Jack, when you've got domestic crimes, it's almost impossible to foresee those kind of things. Other crime that happens in our neighborhoods, our community policing is a good program, and we depend so much on the local citizens. If they see something that's not right, we ask them, please call the police department and let them know, because that's what it takes. We've got, I'm not sure how many officers out on the streets, but we've got 45,000 citizens here that can be watching everything on the streets, more than the policemen can. And even though we're still short policemen, the policemen that we have are doing a good job. And those that we interview, we're putting them through all kind of psychological testing and things. So we're not, just because a man wants to be a policeman, he's just not being hired off the street. He goes through a lot of testing and so forth and so on. So anyhow, that's, we have raised salaries for our policemen, and we are also having sign-on bonuses now for those post-certified policemen, people that have been certified as policemen in other areas, maybe even retired. that want to come back to work, we're offering them bonuses to come on. So, that's what's going on in our police department.
Now, we hear some information, that Councilman, that it might go a little bit against what you just said, because we get the information that the line troops are, they're fatigued, they're stressed out. Um, you know, the we're hearing that the morale is low, especially upon some feedback that we received from several retiring policemen.
Yeah.
And so, and given, from the various sources that we are talking to that are considered reliable, we're talking about the department is almost 1/3 down. And I would agree with you as well, given a major shortage, um, given the major shortage that we have, I think those guys are doing a fairly good job, keeping us safe across the board. But with the staffing shortage as high as what is being purported to us, I could also begin to see where the concern is about the stress and the fatigue and the long hours and different things of that nature as well.
Well, all I can say, Jack, is that we're getting information from two different sources.
Mm.
I had a long talk either yesterday, day before yesterday, with a police chief, and I asked him candidly what was going on, and and were we still short officers, which we were, but he said the officers that we have, are picking up the slack really well, and we're covering all areas of the city. He was happy with what was being done. And he's the one that told me that he just felt like the morale was so much better than it used to be. We want to hire more policemen, and we're making those efforts to hire them. Such as I just told you. But I mean, let's be honest. Policing these days is a tough job, and a lot of young people. It's not the top thing on their list. I mean, it's very difficult, and if something goes wrong, the police are always the first ones to be blamed for it. They can lose their job for just doing their job, and so it's that's got to affect them, and that's not just Alexandria, that's all over the country. So and all over the country is having the same problem hiring. You talk about big cities, Chicago. They're short 3,000 policemen. New Orleans is short 300 or 400 policemen. So it's like that everywhere, and that's why the community policing is so important, and getting the community to sign on and confidentially report things that they see, so that things can be, crimes can hopefully be stopped before they occur.
Okay. All right. Well, I definitely will say that Chief Gremion, he took a stance a couple of weeks ago at one of the incidents that were out in the field, and he reached out to us and said, "Hey, I want to assure and let the public know that this particular incident was contained, and it was no need for stress." And I thought that was a good gesture on Chief Gremion's part, and given the size of the city of Alexandria, you would think we would have that kind of communication coming from our policing force. I know we sometimes, and again, I don't have a problem. Never did have a problem, really until here lately, getting information coming from the Alexandria Police Department. But what I clearly know was that it wasn't the Alexandria Police Department, and I hope I'm always articulating that. But if one thing that I did see the other day, and the comments that came back behind it, it was just awesome that Chief Grimion had the ability to make the public aware that everything was okay and they didn't have anything to worry
Yeah.
about. And so I'm saying that to you, Councilman, because that's something that I think we do have the resources to get something like that and
Yeah.
put it in place. And I think it would definitely um, help our community process this stuff a little bit better.
Yeah. Well, he's a top-notch police officer and a top-notch individual. You know, he's a good man. He's a good man. He's a fair man. And I've known him for many years. Back really when he worked for the city many years ago, before he became a state policeman. So I've known him for a long time, and I'm very, very, very happy that he's our police chief.
Yeah. We need to let him do some of that stuff a little bit more often. I think, based upon the feedback that I get from the public, that's what I'll pass that on over to you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just change the subject a little bit over here to the utility system, and what have you there. The utility system last year, we definitely had a crisis last year, and I think we're still having a crisis today. But it's causing tons of uncertainty with a lot of people in our community. The hardships are still there. Some of the media cycle, some of us don't talk about it as much, but the feedback that I have, people are still having the same problems. Lack of bills being sent out, not understanding thoroughly how the payment processes work. The ability to make a payment and the payment reflect whatever happens, kind of like in a real-time situation as opposed to a batch processing situation. And it's got a couple of questions. Got one comment out here right now about the funds that the utility fund generates, those funds being utilized for the utility system itself as opposed to other stuff. What's your thoughts about where we are as it relates to what's happening with our utility system?
Okay. Well, first of all, as you said, we had a horrible problem last year. Our delinquencies went up so much that we actually lost our excellent bond rating. When the bond holders came into town, they lowered our bond rating, which in effect caused our interest rates to go up that we pay on our plan. But we have recently hired more meter readers because we finally were able to increase their wages. That's one of the toughest jobs in the city and the hardest jobs to keep staffed. And that's where our problems were. Last year, we had hired an outside company, to come over and take over the whole thing, thinking that they would solve this problem. We paid them a lot of money, but it didn't work. So we have just recently, again, hired more meter readers. So hopefully our bills will be more timely on a 30-day cycle like they're supposed to be. Going forward, we are currently investigating, it's called a AIM program, computer program, where all of our meters in all of our homes will be able to be read remotely. That information will go straight into the building department. It'll all be automatic. Nobody will have to go out to your house. And that will take care of the problem of, not having that exact 30-day bill every month, which we all need because everybody needs to budget. And it's tough when you get a bill that was 45 days or a bill that was last year, you might have gotten a bill that was 60 days. But that most people, the great majority, are all back to 30-day billing. We've reduced our past dues by about 70% through people, working their bills out and so forth and so on. And so that's been helped a lot. I'd like to say, we've got a lot of poor people in our community, and a lot of people that, just aren't ever able to pay a utility bill and a food bill and a rent bill. And we're working with well, first of all, let me say this. The city is prohibited by state law from lowering utilities or giving special deals to any person or groups of people. We can't do that. But what we can do is encourage our nonprofits to help work with people. CCAC, we can work with them and hopefully filter a little bit more money to them for them to help people pay their bills. But it's tough, and I'll say this, and you won't believe it, and your listeners won't believe it, but it's true, and that is that our utility rates are one of the lowest in the state, and that can be verified strictly by going to the Public Service Commission and asking them for the rates for the 20 cities in the state that are similar to us, and you can see what the rates are. Utilities are a big expense for everybody. I know every time I get my
Looks like we may have lost Councilman Rubin. He is frozen on my side over here. So hopefully he will be back with us here shortly. We are. If you guys can just bear with us a few seconds, I do see some questions out here. Hopefully, Councilman Rubin will come right back in, and when he comes back in, I'll bring him right back onto the screen. But I hope, Mark, we have answered your question. Sean, your question is out here. I have it queued to throw it at him as soon as we get through with the utility discussion. Definitely want to thank all you guys for joining us tonight and what have you. And hopefully, we can have other city officials to join us over here and partake in, community discussions about what's going on with our government. Normally, it doesn't take that long, so if you guys can just bear with us. Let's see if I can raise him on the phone. I will be right back, guys. I'm going to go see if I can reach him. Just hang tight. And I'll be right back. So Councilman Rubin is on his way back in. I think he didn't have do not disturb on his telephone off. So again, we apologize for that, but hopefully he'll be back and we'll pick right back up where he was. So I am right at this moment waiting for him to actually come back in. As soon as I see him coming in, I'll bring him back onto the stage. Let's see what other questions. So we got the an Acadian ambulance question that you guys are waiting to get the answer on. All right. When do they come and read the meters? Okay, we'll throw that. Well, he's almost back in, guys. As soon as he come back in, all right. So he's back now.
That I don't know what.
That was perfect.
Okay.
All right. I kind of you were finishing up on the utility statement.
Yeah. You know, utilities are just a very expensive necessity. But, you know, we have a good utility system here. And as expensive as I was saying, as expensive as people say it is, you know, when you compare this to the rest of the state, you know, the problem with us is people look at their utility bill and look at something that's got water, electricity, gas, wastewater, sanitation, all in one bill. But that's, you know, that's everything. You know, your electricity itself is about half of your total bill. And people still have a hard time understanding that. But the other thing about Alexandria's utilities, you know, somebody was asking the other day, you know, why should we sell our utilities to CLECO? Well, you know, that's a question that people have asked. But the fact is that when our utilities, many reasons, but when our utilities go out around here because of the storm, we're back up. Most of our town is back up in a matter of hours. Occasionally, if it's really bad, we may be out for 24 hours or maybe a little bit longer. But, you know, our guys get on things really quick. You know, they get us back up and running. And when there's as we had a few years ago, $10 million worth of damages done, we don't put an extra charge on your bill to repair all those damages. Most utility companies do that. They got to recover that money. You know, if it's a investor-owned utility, the people that own that stock want to make money off of it. You know, we don't have to make money off of our utilities. Now, with that being said, we do have about a 5% fee that we charge that we take from our utility income that we use to support the bus, the zoo, and to help supplement sanitation. You know, if we used any other utility, we would be paying that 5% fee to them. You know, and so we wouldn't come out ahead. Our utility bill, our utility system is a real treasure for the city of Alexandria.
Well, you know, Lee, I would definitely agree with you on the fact that if we didn't have our utility system, we would not be able to keep the city functioning the way it functions right at this moment. But I also know that there are utility systems just like right over in Kissimmee, Florida, right outside of Disney World. The municipality there owns their utilities, and it they don't look at they look at their utility system as a leverage to get people to move into the community with some of the lowest
Yeah.
utilities in the country. And on the other hand, us here, we make that statement that um, we have some very good rates on utilities, yet we have a significant markup in the utilities to help us make as a city and to make our ends meet per se. And so with that said, my understanding of it, looking at the budget and seeing where dollars are being moved around to and from, we make a lot of money on it, and unfortunately, one of the other things that people say, we become dependent on that system, especially given the fact we've seen so much industry, the Air Force, the some of the larger companies move away from our community, and to offset those losses of tax revenues, we increase the rates on our utilities because I do believe Alexandria at one time had Alexandria had some of the best rates out there, but now I'm not 100% sure that they are because of our dependence on those
Well,
earnings after expenses are paid.
well, I urge you to go to the Secretary of State
Hmm.
and go to the Secretary of State. I'm not sorry. Go to the Public Service Commission
Hmm.
and get that information.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, when some of those big companies moved away, uh, like Pineville Craft or IP, excuse me. Uh,
Hmm.
we sold them a tremendous amount of water.
Hmm.
They
That's
didn't
right.
use our utilities. They
Hmm.
didn't use our gas, but we supplied their water to them.
Right.
And same thing. Some of the other utilities around that, we supply water to a lot of the small towns around us.
Hmm.
Because it's a lot cheaper for them to buy it from us than it is for them to have their own system.
Right.
Now, when they buy it from us, they're going to pay a little bit. They're going to pay a surcharge because they're not our citizens, and they don't need to get the same rates that our citizens do. But you just look up that information
We will.
and see what you see. Okay, because we've had this discussion many times, and
Right.
it's I'm not going to tell you. And I don't think anybody in the city will tell you that utilities are inexpensive because they are not.
No.
They are not inexpensive. They are probably the biggest expense that a lot of people have. Is their utilities, and but it's a necessity. It's something that we have to have. And if we didn't take some of that money to subsidize those other things, then we'd have to raise our our property taxes. We'd have to raise our sales taxes. We'd have to do something else to make up the shortage, unless the community decided that they don't want a bus service. They don't want a zoo. And they want to cut their sanitation down to 1 day a week instead of 2 days a week. Uh, we're one of the only cities around, I think, that's got twice a week pickup on our garbage, which we've all gotten spoiled by.
Hmm.
So we pay. You got to pay for what you get.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and move on. I got a question out here from Sean Markintel, and he wants to know, it's an issue pertaining to the ambulance service, and he said at one point you were for multi-providers, and I think I'm summing it up right, and I think you can see it as well.
I don't have it.
Oh, okay. So he said he called you when the ambulance issue was first before you personally said you were for multiple providers,
Yeah.
and then you switch your vote when it counted close. And he would like to get your response on that particular.
Okay, I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. I don't remember how I voted on it the last time. I really don't.
Mm-hmm.
But going forward, unless I change my mind between now and then, which is possible, I think we're better off with a single provider. Multiple providers, on the surface, sounds really good because the more you've got, the more competition, the better things are. But that's not always the case. And I just have to make my decision based on what I've heard from the police, from the sheriff, from the hospitals, and they all tell us that they feel like single service is better. The police jury, just recommended a single service, and there were some pretty bright people on that panel that made that decision. and we have to. We normally always go along with whatever the police jury does because we want to have the same service throughout the parish. We could have two services and them only one, but then it's not economically feasible for those service providers. They've got to make a profit. And if you cut into their volume of business, their profits go down and they're not going to be able to give you as good a service. So you have whoever you choose, and don't ask me who my choice is because I haven't decided on that yet, but whoever you choose has got to be able to make a good return on their investment so that they can give us the service that we want.
It's someone out said simply is not true. They say that and and our research shows that there are municipalities that offer multiple.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
I've lost your voice.
Yeah. What's your thoughts about that? Because there are municipalities out there that use multiple providers in with ambulance service. Some real large communities. Yeah. I think Dallas, perhaps New Orleans Orleans Parish may have a multi-provider system.
Well, now you're talking about much larger populations of people that can support more than one service. We're talking about Rapides Parish with a population of around 100,000 or less than 100,000 people, whereas you're talking about Orleans Parish, it's got 1 million people. So a much larger market can support more than one provider. But when you're in a small market, I think you've got one provider is going to work good for us, and you're going to always have hiccups. There's always going to be a situation where something can come up and somebody got lousy service. Some years back, I had a member of my family had lost consciousness, and we had to call for an ambulance. And we're very fortunate here in Alexandria. Our first responder in most cases is our fire department. And they've got EMTs on every truck. And they're there and they start caring for that individual. And then because they got to me, considerably quicker than the ambulance would. The fire department's response now averages 5 minutes, 5.3 minutes to get to a call. So that's our EMT that gets to us first. And then our trained, our extra trained, our experts on the ambulance get there and take over. So I think we're in pretty good shape because we have our fire department serving that function.
Well, I just would like the citizens to give real good answers, but I think it was I know when I was covering one of the meetings, I think it was either St. Landry or Evangeline Parish that came up, and they actually coexist with multiple providers in their environment, and I think they are a much smaller parish than we are, and it appeared to be working there, based upon their parish administrator,
right,
of that nature. All right. So we're going to move on. Councilman, many youth in Alexandria feel they have limited access to meaningful recreational activities. What plans do you guys have or initiatives do you guys plan to propose to enhance programs and activities for young people in the community? One of the things we know is that recreation, we know we have an extremely bad crime problem. Tons of studies that are out there suggest that, having a robust, recreational programs for kids is something that's could be really helpful to give them something extra to go do. And when you look around our community, basically all of the community centers are shut down at a certain time. There's very little to no programming there that kids can take part in. Is there any thoughts, from the council standpoint of saying, hey, administration, we've got to begin addressing the needs of our young people?
Well, I can't speak for the entire council, but I can speak for myself. And last year I think we really dropped the ball. Had very little last year. This summer we had a lot more programming for young people. We've got a new program. We did not have a program director last year. We've got a new head of recreation this year, Dr. Fox, who's a very sharp man, and I think is doing a good job. But we need to go a whole lot farther, as you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to see us increase the opportunities that we have with recreation. I'd like to see us work out some type of a cooperative agreement with Peabody to use their swimming pool so that we could have swimming lessons for all ages, including adults and the elderly, because it's a great exercise and it's something. I'm not worried about our elderly people causing problems, but it is a good health benefit to them to get that type of exercise. So I'm gonna push for that to try to work that out. I know we've tried to do that before, and for some reason we've not been able to do it. But I think that's number one. We need to have, again, more program for our elderly that can help them, but primarily, our softball programs, our baseball program, our basketball. We just finished spending $500,000 over in Cheatham Park, redoing the basketball goals. And I don't know if you've seen it, but it's did a really nice job over there. I think there's 8 goals, if not 4 courts maybe, that are set up there. We've got other areas in town that I think we can do more of that. Of course, that's year-round stuff. I don't know what time they shut the lights off, but I think well, I'm not going to guess. I really don't know. But we do need to increase the amount of programming that we have. We passed a tax several years ago, and with money designated for programming. I don't know. I've not seen an accounting of that. I don't know exactly how that programming money has been used. I believe it's being used as it's supposed to be, but we probably need to figure out a way to, hire more kids in the summertime to help oversee those programs, because we can't just hire regular city employees to do it. It just gets too expensive. But perhaps we can hire summer help, and that kills 2 birds with 1 stone. You get these high school, college kids, you're giving them something productive to do, and they're keeping the younger people off the streets. And
Like we've lost Mr. Rubin again. I apologize to you guys. Let me. I'm gonna check and see. I know the conversation was getting good, guys. We can't control the communication sometimes of the folk who are coming in. It just really depends on if they're coming through cell or Wi-Fi and different things of that nature. But if you guys can bear with me for 1 second, I will jump out and try to figure out what's going on.
Jack?
Trying to make things around a little bit, and
I've got you. Got me.
yeah, I got you. You're back in. So
We're on my phone.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I guess that's my internet services evidently not cooperating.
Yeah, sometimes that happens. That happens to us sometimes. No problem. All right, let me swap you around. Okay, you can go back and so you jumped on to regular cell this time around as opposed.
Yeah.
So do you have optimal at home, or do you have?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
What do I need? Vexus?
I'm not going to get into promoting either one of them.
Okay.
I'm going to stay away from that. You can go ahead and pick right back up if you like.
Okay. So I don't remember where we were.
Well, we were wrapping up about the youth, but I think we had came to a conclusion on that. Councilman Rubin, one of the things that a lot of people talk about is the economic disparities within the city itself. We're talking about the city of Alexandria consuming goods and services from the vendors and whomever that supply over to the city, and I think. Here recently, we had a disparity study completed, and in that disparity study, it was really troubling. The average person should think it was troubling, given the fact that the city of Alexandria makeup is anywhere from 57 to 60% African American. African Americans that live here in the city only supply less than 1% of the goods and services to the city of Alexandria. And tons of people are extremely, concerned about these numbers. And you hear tons of explanations, but today I don't think that that those explanations that have been given are sufficient, given as sophisticated as we as Alexandrians are. What would you propose we do, or how do you propose that horrible mix that I just explained? How do we fix that problem?
Well, I think the first thing we need to do is for the city or for one of our economic development entities around town, uh, start putting on a class to teach people what they need to do in order to participate in city business. The great majority of the business that the city does is on bids. And in order to bid, you have to be bonded and you have to have insurance. And a lot of people uh, don't quite understand that. They don't know how to go about doing that. And I would like to see someone educate our business folks as to the steps that they have to go through. Because once the bids are received by the city, if you have to show proof of insurance, you got to show proof that you're bonded. With the bid sheet itself, there's no names on them, and all the city looks for is the lowest price. Uh, we have a lot of yard services around town, and the city spends millions of dollars every year on yard services. And there are many of those yard services that are owned and operated by minorities and that are totally capable of doing the work, but they have to have the insurance and the bonding, and that's the first place to start. Uh, Aside from that, you know, if you unfortunately if you look around at the business owners in Alexandria, there's not a tremendous amount of minority business owners that have sufficiently uh, large enough businesses to handle the needs of the city. I'm sure there are some, uh, and but and why they don't bid, I don't know. But I don't think they are bidding on these city projects. I know there's uh, a, uh, a young man that's got a construction company in here in town. I don't mind saying his name, Turner and Turner. I know he's had several city bids uh, that he's been successful in doing. Uh, but I mean, that's what it is. They have to learn the rules, number one, and follow those rules. And hopefully, the city, or somebody else can do that. And we talked about this at a council meeting just a week or so ago, and on how that might take place. But I can tell you that the mayor and all of us on the council would very much like to see a much larger minority participation in those contracts.
Well, do you think then, Councilman Rubin, do you think then that maybe the policies that you guys have in front, that the policies for a certain amount of bond or whatever that must do, are we in line with other municipalities, or have we set those policies at a point where they're so stringent until it makes it extremely difficult for one to get in? And I'll say this because I have actually had conversations with some of the young fellows who have lawn businesses and different things of that nature. And at one point, they had contracts with the city. The city changed its policies to say, hey, you must have a horticulturalist or a person with a degree in agriculture or something like that, a forestry or something service. You had to have, we put the bar out there and we made that bar extremely high where the smaller guys really can't even begin to afford somebody to be a horticulturalist or a forestry person or somebody like that in play. So my guess my question to you: have we over policy,
Yeah.
in the city of Alexandria, and has policing impacted our ability to work with the entire community?
Jack, I really can't answer that question. I do not have the answer. I
Mm-hmm.
just made myself a note to
Mm-hmm.
call and find out about that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know, I cannot see any reason in the world why a person has to be an expert in grass in order to cut grass. I
Yeah.
wouldn't understand that for a minute. And if that is the policy, I will do what I can to
Hmm.
change that policy.
Right.
There is a legitimate reason for having insurance,
Right.
um, and what the limits of that insurance are, I have no idea. I would imagine they're fairly high because
Hmm.
that insurance is to protect the city in case that person, uh, damages, uh, injures somebody or damages somebody's property. That if they don't have the insurance, then the city's responsible. And so I don't know what those insurance levels are, but I'm gonna find out that tomorrow. If I have time tomorrow, I'm gonna make a call and see if I can find out, because if you're correct on that, then something needs to be done about that.
Right. And the other thing is, most municipalities, once the bidding process is over, the bids have been opened, then they're available for public inspection. And that's been another thing that in my travels throughout the community, you get a lot of feedback about, they folk have asked for that information and they have never been able to get it, but you can go right online and pull that same information up for the city of Shreveport and many
Yeah,
other municipalities throughout the state. But here in Alexandria, no one ever can see what someone bidded on something
yeah.
and things of that nature.
I'm not sure why the policy is like it is, or even if that is a policy.
Mm-hmm.
But as we talked before the show, beginning our next meeting, you'll be getting the same book of information that we get, and in that book is ordinarily uh, the results and tabulations of all the different bids. So you will be able to see that information and disseminate that information as you see fit.
Okay. Well, and that's where I was going in this next question I had for you. Transparency and governance, are essential for healthy community, and making sure that the community trusts the process that's actually what's actually happening within our government. And our observation, I think I made that phone call to you back in March when we requested information on the fact sheets and things of that nature. And then there was a bunch of finger pointing going between the administration. Mayor Roy said it was the council. Councilman Fowler stated it was Jock Roy that had done changed policy. And at the end of the day, the citizens didn't have the information that they needed to have in place when they came into the council's chamber to listen,
Yeah.
what was going on. And so that appeared to be an issue across the board, and that flow of information coming out of city government, and what kind of plan, I applaud y'all if next in 2 weeks at the next council meeting, if we can get the fact sheets and the supporting documents, that's going to be good. Um, but what plans would we have to take a look at this across the board and make sure we are communicating with the public and being as transparent as we possibly
I
can?
don't quite understand what you mean by across the board.
Well, the bid process. Once the bids are open and the bid is awarded, why not? Why aren't the bids?
You will. That information,
Hmm.
in most cases, that information is in the book, and you will be getting a copy of that.
Okay.
Okay, so you will see that. There occasionally are bids that come through for uh, that are so involved that, and there are a lot of bidders on this, things like screws and washers and a million different little things. And they do all that tabulation, and then basically they just tell us that there were various bids on it. We don't see the actual tabulation on that because it's just a tremendous amount of work, and it doesn't come up that often. But most of the bids, are tabulated, and you will see them in that book.
Well,
They will be there, and we've been told that all that will be available online prior to the next meeting. Now, we get our information on usually Tuesday afternoon or Wednesday before Monday, so I would imagine that it would go online at the same time or just a day later, for them to get that out.
okay. All right. Well, I'll definitely be the one. I will definitely report when I can get that information. I will make sure that the public know that the information is there and available for them. Another quick question for you, the councilman. Can you just discuss some specific programs or initiatives that we have this thing called the city of Alexandria, and clearly, if we go into West Alexandria, we see stuff over there that we don't see over in the southeastern side of the city. We do know, I think we all know that the utility system helps this city function in lots of ways, but yet and still we don't see planned projects in Southeast Alexandria, and there's certainly not been any master planning to say, hey, this is where we're going. So the underserved community here in the city is sitting back and wondering, we talk about quality of life initiatives all the time, but when is that quality of life going to be addressed for the underserved part of this community?
Well, Jack, a lot of those things that you're talking about are a result of where the majority of the higher income families in Alexandria live, and retail stores and all these different type of businesses, privately owned businesses, locate where the majority of the money is. Okay, now that's, South Alexandria is a relatively poor community, and unfortunately, private investors have not wanted to build over there. Unfortunately, some years ago, we had a shopping center planned with a grocery store and several different things planned for the Hodges stockyard, and that thing was shot down by the the South Alexandria community and people that own property down there. We are spending money. We're getting ready to spend $20 million on the Shetland Lake drainage canal, which will help the area a lot. We're getting ready. We just approved another ordinance in another phase of the help me out here, the road to Highway 1.
Oh, you're talking about the bridge between 1 and 71.
Yeah.
That quarter. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a very expensive project that's mainly funded by the state with a city match that hopefully one day will be completed. But it all comes down to trying to raise the standard of living for the folks that live in that part of town, because if they've got more money to spend, then things are going to locate there.
Mm-hmm.
It's that simple. I mean, and again, the city doesn't control where businesses and all open. The money in that area. McDonald's, they count housetops, and they want to know what the average income in those housetops is, and that's where they locate.
Well,
So that's not something that the city spent a lot of time, tremendous amount of time trying to find somebody to take over that stockyard property, and the city was going to do it. Spend a lot of money helping a developer to make it feasible for them, but we just never could find that developer.
all right. Councilman, just about it probably was one of the senator from South Carolina, and it was a Democrat and a Republican that passed the enterprise zone projects, and tons of municipalities throughout the state of Louisiana took took advantage of enterprise zone planning. A zone was planned for right here in Alexandria, and that was to say, hey, you have a depressed community, and hey, investors, you go over, you can go park these dollars for for some time, and for whatever reason, here in the city of Alexandria, we passed all those opportunities up. Shreveport took advantage of it, Baton
Well,
Rouge, Lake Charles, but we didn't. And when you look at the demographics of all of these three cities, some of the same issues that we are facing here in Alexandria, but it seemed like it was a leadership lack of interest in that. So what can we do? And some of the, and the enterprise zone programs are some things that, tons of people are talking about how successful they were. Given another opportunity, if something like that happens again, will we have do we have the appetite to say, hey, it's time for us to do something, because what we're doing isn't
yeah.
getting anything done, and so.
Well, I would hope that we would, and I believe there's still areas within the city
Mm-hmm.
that are still in enterprise zones.
Mm-hmm.
But there again, it comes down to the business people that are ready to, gamble their money and go and establish a business in that enterprise zone. That enterprise zone gives them a big break on their taxes, on their a lot of times on the utilities. There are different things that enterprise zones do, for people. You've got a lot of nice housing that's been developed in that area because of tax incentives, tax rebates, so forth and so on, which are the result of may not be an enterprise zone, but it's the same type thing, except it's done for housing instead of business.
Mm.
So it all comes down to the businessman. He's the one that's got to make the decision to open up a business. The government will help with a lot of different programs because the government wants those areas that have been depressed to grow and to come back to life and to be good places for people to live. The city wants it, the state wants it. The national, everybody does. We all want to see that happen, but basically, it comes down to the individual business people, that are willing to go out there and do it. And just like every other business in this town, and it's either some out of town corporation or local people that have put up the money, sometimes with some government help. But the bulk of the money is put up by the entrepreneur, the guy that wants to go out there because he thinks he can make money, by doing it. And we're living in a capitalistic society. It's all about making money.
Yeah, that is.
They think they can make money.
Right. Well, I tell you what, Councilman, I know we didn't hit our hour. I don't like to go over an hour. I know we had some technical difficulties.
Yeah.
But we would love. I would encourage your campaign to go out and to look at the comments out there on Urban Cast under this broadcast, and I would encourage you to look at some of the comments. They are. I think you definitely want to read them and kind of digest them and that kind of thing. But I know we had some technical difficulties, but in the future, we'd love to have you back to dive a little deeper. Again, I definitely want to say thank you to you. I'm gonna say Lee this time. I do appreciate you. I do appreciate you coming on. Because one thing, we may not agree on everything, but on the same token, at least we can have a discussion. And right now, you and I kind of talked about just a few minutes, before we got into it. There's a significant number of politicians who are vying for our votes, but they're not saying anything. And that, that's not good, and it's not wholesome for the folk to get to know their candidates and what the candidates are about as well. So I applaud you for saying, hey, I'm gonna go over here and get in the frying pan tonight.
Absolutely. Jack, I tell you what, I may not always tell you what you want to hear, but I'm not going to blow smoke. I'm going to tell you how I truly feel about things, and
Mm-hmm.
what I feel is the truth. I'm not going to tell you things that are going to make me just, people say, "Oh, he's a good guy." I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to lie to you. I'm going to try to be straight in everything I say.
Mm-hmm. Well, I tell you what, you take a look at them questions out there, and when you
Okay.
get some extra time, let's try to come back and rally back up and try to answer some of those
Okay.
questions.
We'll do it.
Before I get ready to close, do you have anything you'd like to say to the listeners out there?
Well, I hope I can have their support in this election. Uh, I made the comment to somebody that, Alexandria it's a business. It's a $300 million business, and I'm the only one out of the 3 people running that have operated businesses for many years and hired and worked with employees for many years, and I've got the experience that none of the other ones have. You may like their personalities better. You may like the way they look better, but I'm the only one that really has the experience, and I want Alexandria to move forward. I truly do, and I'm not talking about just West Alexandria. I'm talking about the whole city, because it takes everybody in the city to make a city successful. And so I'm here. If anybody's got any questions, city website or my website has got my contact information. That's my personal cell phone, so it will get answered, and my personal email address. So I will try to answer any questions you have. And in the interim, if you've got any problems in your neighborhood or something, and your local council person is not able to help you out, I'm there to pick up the slack there as well. So just give me a call, and I'll be more than happy to work with you any way I can.
Well, thank you very much, Councilman Rubin, for joining us tonight and sharing your vision for Alexandria Council at Large seat. We appreciate your insights and your dedication to our community. A big thank you to our followers who tuned in and who will watch a show a little later. Also, another big thank you to our advertisers, Math Makes Sense, National Auto and Tire, Sadler's Towing, and Long's Preferred Products. Your support keeps our shows like this going and helping to keep our community informed. Remember, if you haven't registered to vote, you can do so online at govote.com. Let's continue to stay involved and make a positive impact on our community. Have a great night, everyone. Talk to y'all later.
Thank you.
If you just hang tight.